They weren't just dead, they were used. The Arctic doesn't reveal secrets, it seals them. To understand the bones, you have to go back to the promise. John Franklin, experienced, celebrated, and already marked by failure. Before this mission, he learned what hunger can make a man do. They called him the man who ate his shoes. He survived, but the price stayed with him. And still, they trusted him with an expedition that could not fail. Erebus, terror, names that sound like warnings. They built them to fight the ice, not to be swallowed by it. Steam power, modern, ambitious, and not nearly strong enough for what waited. 16,000 tins, enough to make them believe they were safe. The killer wasn't the cold, not at first. They left as heroes. The crowd believed in endings with medals. Franklin didn't look like a man chasing glory. He looked like a man walking back into hunger. And then, the last warm voices became a rumor behind them. Every mile north is a mile away from rescue. This was the last time anyone saw them alive. They chose the west, into a place the map couldn't warn them about. The ice didn't attack them. It simply closed. Listen closely. That sound isn't the ship. It's the beginning of the end. Before the ice took them, it chose its victims carefully. They called him celebrated, but the map behind him was still mostly empty. Britain needed a shortcut to the Pacific, and it was willing to gamble lives for it. They didn't send ordinary ships, they sent fortresses. Steam power, modern, loud, and still weaker than the Arctic silence. 16,000 tins, enough to make them believe the Arctic couldn't starve them. The danger wasn't outside, it was sealed inside their own food. They left as heroes. The crowd believed in clean endings. Franklin didn't look like a man chasing glory. He looked like a man returning to hunger. The last warm voices became a rumor behind them. Every mile north is a mile away from help. This is the last time anyone saw them alive. They chose the west, into a place the map couldn't describe. The ice didn't attack them. It simply closed. That sound isn't the ship. It's the beginning of the end. They didn't crash, they didn't sink. They simply stopped. They pushed the engine to its limit. The ice didn't even notice. They had arrived at the Arctic's simplest weapon, time. Winter didn't arrive. It claimed them. They ate what they had, and with every bite, something else ate them. The first symptom looked harmless, like fatigue, like winter. It didn't look like sickness. It looked like men slowly losing themselves. One of them swore he saw a man walking outside, but no one could survive out there. Franklin could command men, but he couldn't command what was happening inside their bodies. Days became weeks. Weeks became a winter that didn't feel like it would ever end. They told themselves it was just the cold, just fatigue, just bad luck. The taste stayed in their mouths, like a coin held too long on the tongue. At first, it sounded like tiredness, then it sounded like damage. Discipline is a thin coat. In the Arctic, it cracks. Franklin could silence a room, but he couldn't silence what was happening inside their blood. The Arctic doesn't rush. It tightens until you can't breathe. Weeks became months. The ship didn't move. The men did, just not in the right direction. When the mind is poisoned, the ship becomes haunted. They checked every sound, and every sound checked them back. No footsteps, no visitor, just the wind, and a mind that no longer trusts itself. Fear didn't feed them, the tins did, so they kept eating. They started bleeding in small ways, easy to deny, impossible to stop. The poison didn't announce itself. It took their strength piece by piece. He wrote orders like the paper could move the ice. The ice didn't need to break the ship. It only needed to hold it long enough. For a moment, it looked like the season might forgive them. And then it didn't melt, not enough, not anywhere that mattered. Their bodies began to fall apart in ways hunger alone couldn't explain. Even their records began to tremble, like the truth was trying to escape the page. The Arctic didn't need to kill him fast, it only needed to wait. The next morning, the ship felt different, quieter. John Franklin never woke up. The Arctic didn't roar when it killed him, it waited. With Franklin gone, certainty vanished with him. They were closer to land than rescue. They chose motion over waiting, even if motion killed them faster. They dragged boats meant for water across a frozen desert. This was the last time they would see their ships. Some couldn't keep up. The ice didn't wait. No graves, no markers, just distance. Every mile forward meant fewer men behind. They were not alone out there. They were being watched. To the Inuit, they didn't look like explorers. They looked like the walking dead. They dragged boats across the ice. Even the Inuit couldn't understand that. The march left a trail of things they could no longer carry. They found bones, broken in ways the cold couldn't explain. By the time they reached land, there was almost no one left. The cuts were deliberate, made by human hands. They broke the bones open, and they took everything. The Arctic kept the rest. The ice kept its secret for more than a century. In 2014, they finally found one of the ships. It was preserved, like the Arctic never let it go. In 2016, they found the second ship. Some questions are better left in the dark. Franklin was not the last to believe the Arctic could be conquered. In 1897, Salomon Andre would learn the same lesson. The Arctic does not hate us, it simply doesn't care. It waits, as it always has. If you had been there, what would you have chosen? Nothing changed after they vanished. The ice stayed exactly the same. In Britain, the silence became unbearable. Months passed, then years. One person refused to let the silence win. Lady Jane Franklin pushed the Empire to search. Search ships returned to the north. They didn't find men, they found traces. The Inuit told a story Britain didn't want to hear. Cannibalism was unthinkable, so they rejected it. Science finally listened. The Inuit had been right all along. Where were the ships? For decades, the sea kept its answer. Then, at last, they found it. Time stopped for the ship, but not for us. Two ships, one fate. Some moments are meant to stay unobserved. The Arctic outlived them all. Today, what remains sits behind glass. History compresses suffering into paragraphs. The land itself never changed. The Arctic reduces everything to scale. But humans don't remember scale, they remember stories. Franklin became a hero again. The ice tells a different story. Confidence doesn't survive contact with the Arctic. The Inuit adapted, they survived. They carried the wrong tools into the wrong world. Survival became arithmetic. What followed was not cruelty, it was desperation. The Arctic favors no one, and we keep telling the story. History simplifies what pain never could. The land waits. Exploration is never free. The Arctic does not forgive. Because the Arctic doesn't look like an enemy, it looks like empty space. We think better tools mean better outcomes. Out there, even direction becomes a lie. If you were there, what would you sacrifice first? Food, pride, morality. Which one breaks first? Their answer is carved into the bone. When the plan breaks, who do you become? And that is why the Arctic never runs out of bodies or stories. So let's return to the question history avoided. Would you choose a quick death or survival at any cost? When the world collapses, the body starts negotiating. Food becomes the first god. Pride lasts until it hurts to carry it. Morality breaks quietly, one decision at a time. In the Arctic, the silence isn't peaceful, it's pressure. It's not hunger that breaks you first. It's what hunger does to your mind. That's when the unthinkable becomes thinkable. Curiosity can be honest. Control is the lie. The ships are found. The truth is found. The cost remains. Here's the part that matters. Would you choose the quick death or survival at any cost? Tell me in the comments, what would you do? And if you want more true stories where nature wins, then watch the next one. The Arctic has more graves than we can count. In the end, the Arctic doesn't need a villain. It only needs time. It waited for Franklin. It waits for anyone who believes they are different. So what would you choose? If this story got under your skin, stay with me. Next, we go to another place where humans thought they could win. The Arctic is still waiting. Not survivors, not bodies, just fragments. In London, the silence turned into headlines. Search parties came north and found only the Arctic's patience. One scrap of cloth, and suddenly the dead felt close. A note existed, and it didn't say, "We're coming home." They left things behind like breadcrumbs, except breadcrumbs mean someone expects you to follow. Then 2016, terror. We found the ships, we found the bones, but we still can't find peace in it. So here's the real question. What would you become before you died? Franklin wasn't the first dream the Arctic swallowed. Maybe courage is not going farther. In the end, the Arctic doesn't need to chase you. It only needs time. A camp is the most human thing in the Arctic and the most fragile. It's never the grand objects that break you. It's the small ones. One step at a time, then one step becomes the whole plan. Erebus, terror. 2 fortresses turned into 2 tombstones. To abandon a ship in the Arctic is to admit you have no home left. They dragged a boat over ice because hope makes you carry stupid weight. Lead doesn't kill like a knife. It makes your mind quietly let go. One wrong step out here isn't a mistake. It's a sentence. The first collapse is always the loudest because it forces a choice. Silence is how you pretend you didn't agree. Death stops being tragedy and starts becoming a resource. They stop speaking in sentences. They speak in tasks. They see something on the horizon, and the mind turns it into rescue. That's the thing about the modern world. Now we can measure the nightmare. Lead, again, not just hunger, chemistry. When command dies, survival takes over, and survival has no manners. They didn't leave a diary. They left a trail. Years pass, the ice stays, and the trail waits for someone else to read it. It starts with something tiny. To accept their story would mean accepting failure, and that was unacceptable. Then the modern world arrives. Sonar, satellites, patience. Inside, the ship is still a home, just one that never opens its door again. We found the ships, and still the story doesn't feel finished. If you were out there, would you choose a clean death or survival at any cost? Because the Arctic doesn't test courage, it tests the story you tell yourself about who you are. They weren't monsters, they were people, pushed past the edge of being people. The Arctic doesn't need to be cruel, it just needs time. Would you still go if I told you the ending in advance? Because after everything, the Arctic answers with silence. So, what would you choose? Tell me in the comments, and if you want another Arctic tragedy, watch the next video. Next time, another name, another dream, same ice. The Arctic doesn't end stories, it stores them. And the worst part is, you can still feel the cold, even here. Because metals don't keep you warm, and pride doesn't melt ice. The Royal Navy believed preparation could overpower nature. Out here, engineering doesn't impress the cold. The body always knows first. Once you stop moving, the Arctic starts deciding for you. They brought thousands of tins to beat the Arctic, but what if the tins were the trap? Lead doesn't kill you like a storm. It rewrites you, quietly, day by day. In a sealed ship, every fear becomes a rumor. Every rumor becomes an enemy. Outside, endless space. Inside, no way out. Franklin dies, and the ship doesn't just lose a man, it loses a center. Stay and starve, leave and freeze. The choice isn't a choice, it's a sentence. In warmth, helping is simple. In the Arctic, helping has a cost. No scream, no fight, just a choice made with footsteps. After that, you stop asking what's right, you ask what's next. Land appears, not as rescue, as the next problem. We turn tragedies into legends because legends feel safer than truth. So the hunt comes back, satellites above, sonar below, patience everywhere. If you knew the ending, would you still go? After everything, the Arctic answers with silence. Would you choose a clean death roll or survival at any cost? Tell me below. If this story shook you, watch the next Arctic tragedy and subscribe because the ice has more names. Next time, another expedition, another dream, same silence. The Arctic doesn't end stories, it stores them.